You have been told your whole life that being polite is a virtue. Say please and thank you. Do not make things awkward. Smile even when you do not feel like it. Keep the peace. Do not make people feel bad. Be the bigger person. And you listened. You became someone who says yes when you mean no, who laughs at jokes that are not funny, who apologizes before finishing a sentence, who would rather swallow discomfort than let someone else feel a moment of it. You became, by every social standard you were raised on, a good person, and it is quietly destroying you, not dramatically, not all at once, but in the slow accumulation of resentment you cannot quite name, the exhaustion that hits you after social situations that should have been fine, the strange hollowness of being liked by everyone and truly known by almost no one. The habits that are doing the most damage to your confidence, your relationships, your mental health, and your ability to get what you actually want out of life are not your bad habits, they are your polite ones. And nobody is going to tell you that because politeness is so deeply wired into how we measure good character that questioning it feels like questioning morality itself. But psychology has been questioning it for decades, and what the research shows is uncomfortable, specific, and worth knowing. Stay with me through habit number 3. That is the one most people have never framed as a problem before. That is the one that is doing the most invisible damage. Habit number 1, saying sorry when nothing is your fault. You bump into a door and apologize to the door. Someone steps on your foot and you say, sorry. You start emails with, I am so sorry to bother you. You apologize for asking a question, for taking up space in a conversation, for existing at a slight inconvenience to someone else. This feels like humility. It is actually one of the most psychologically corrosive habits you can have, and the research on it is unambiguous. A study published in the European Journal of Social Psychology found that people who apologize excessively are perceived not as more considerate, but as less competent and less confident. Every unnecessary sorry you emit sends a signal to the people around you and, far more importantly, to your own brain, that you are someone who defaults to fault, that your presence is inherently an imposition, that you need to preemptively apologize for taking up space before anyone has even suggested you should. Your brain does not distinguish between a social performance and a genuine belief. Every time you say, sorry, when you have done nothing wrong, you are training your own neural pathways to associate your actions, your questions, your needs, your presence with the need for apology. You are building a self-concept that is structurally apologetic. And self-concept is not a soft, fluffy psychological concept. It is the operating system your brain runs your decisions through. Who you believe you are determines what you think you deserve, what you ask for, what you accept, and what you walk away from. The excessive apologizer ends up in relationships and careers and social dynamics where they are consistently undervalued, not because the world is unfair, but because they have been broadcasting for years that they expect less. The fix is not to become rude. It is to replace the reflexive sorry with something accurate. Instead of sorry to bother you, try thank you for your time. Instead of sorry for rambling, try I appreciate you listening. You shift from positioning yourself as a problem to positioning yourself as someone who values the exchange. It is a small linguistic change that produces a significant psychological one. Habit number 2, pretending to be fine when you are not. Someone asks how you are, and before the question is finished, you have already said, fine, good, not bad, can't complain. You have practiced this response so thoroughly that it no longer feels like a performance. It feels like the truth. And that is exactly the problem. Emotional suppression, which is the clinical term for habitually masking your internal state with a socially acceptable performance, has been studied extensively, and the findings are not good. Research from Stanford University found that people who regularly suppress emotional expression have higher rates of cardiovascular stress responses than people who express emotions openly. Your heart is working harder to maintain the performance of fine. A separate body of research has consistently linked chronic emotional suppression to reduced immune function, shorter telomere length, which is a biological marker of cellular aging, and significantly higher rates of depression and anxiety over time. You are being polite at a biological cost, but beyond the physical, there is a social cost that is equally significant. When you habitually present as fine regardless of your actual state, you make genuine connection structurally impossible. Connection requires vulnerability. Vulnerability requires honesty, and you have built such a reliable wall of fine that the people who care about you most have no idea what is actually happening with you. They experience you as surface level not because you are shallow, but because you have been so rigorously trained to keep the surface clean. The people in your life who feel the most real to you are almost certainly the ones with whom you have stopped performing fine. That is not a coincidence. That is the mechanism of intimacy. This does not mean you have to unload your emotional state on every cashier who asks how your day is going. Context matters. But within your real relationships, the ones that matter to you, practicing an honest answer, even a partial one, even a brief one, is not weakness. It is the only thing that makes those relationships worth having. Habit number 3, finishing sentences you do not agree with. Someone is telling you their opinion on something, and partway through, you realize you fundamentally disagree. But they are mid-sentence. They are animated. They are clearly invested in what they are saying. And so you do what polite people do. You nod. You say yeah. You add a small affirmation. You help them complete the thought by your receptive body language and your verbal cues. And by the end of the exchange, you have participated in building an argument you do not believe. And the other person has walked away thinking you agree with them, and you have not said a single dishonest word. This habit is so socially normalized that it does not even register as dishonesty to the people practicing it. First, it makes you invisible. When you never push back, never offer a counter perspective, never signal that your view might differ, you become a social mirror rather than a person. People enjoy talking to mirrors because mirrors reflect them perfectly. But you cannot respect a mirror. You cannot learn from one. You cannot have a real relationship with one. The people who are most valued in social and professional circles are not the people who agree most readily. They are the people whose agreement means something because their disagreement is also possible. When your no never appears, your yes becomes worthless. Second, the habit of absorbing other people's narratives without friction gradually displaces your own. Your opinions, your perspective, your sense of what is true require exercise to stay strong. When you consistently suppress them in favor of social smoothness, they atrophy. You find yourself, after years of this, genuinely uncertain about what you actually think. Not because you are confused, but because you never gave your actual views enough airtime to solidify. You practiced other people's opinions more than your own. And the brain, which strengthens what it uses and weakens what it does not, responded accordingly. The fix is not to become argumentative. It is to practice the small, honest signal of difference, a raised eyebrow, a pause before agreeing, a quiet "I see it a bit differently," a question that invites the other person to consider a counterangle without confrontation. You are not there to win arguments. You are there to be a real person in the conversation. And real people disagree sometimes. That is not rudeness. That is presence. Habit number 4, always being available. Your phone buzzes and you answer it immediately, regardless of what you are doing. Someone needs something, and you rearrange your schedule to accommodate them. A colleague sends a message outside of work hours, and you respond within minutes because not responding feels rude. You have built a reputation as someone who is always there, always responsive, always helpful, and you have done it by making your time structurally available to everyone around you, at the cost of making it unavailable to yourself. Research on what psychologists call response availability and its effect on perceived value shows something most people find genuinely surprising. People who are immediately and consistently available are perceived as less valuable than people who are sometimes unavailable. Not because unavailability is inherently impressive, but because availability without limits signals that the person has no competing demands on their time, no priorities that might outrank you, no work or life of sufficient weight to occasionally take precedence. This is the paradox of constant availability. The more you give of your time with no friction, the less each unit of it is valued, by the person receiving it and, critically, by you yourself. When your time costs nothing to access, it begins to feel like it is worth nothing. You start to organize your life around other people's schedules and needs as the default. And somewhere underneath the busyness is the quiet, persistent feeling that you are never quite getting to the things that actually matter to you. Because the things that actually matter to you require uninterrupted time that you have already given away. The fix is not to become unresponsive or unavailable in ways that harm your relationships or your work. It is to introduce friction. Deliberate, appropriate friction. You do not respond to every non-urgent message within minutes. You do not automatically accommodate every scheduling request. You have times when you are genuinely unavailable, not because you are performing importance, but because you are protecting the time it takes to be a person with your own life. Habit number 5, softening everything to avoid discomfort. You need to tell someone something that might be difficult to hear, So you build such an elaborate cushion of softening language around it that by the time you reach the actual point, the message has been so thoroughly padded that it barely registers. You bury the feedback inside 3 layers of praise. You qualify every honest statement with, "But that is just my opinion," or "I could be wrong." You say something like, "I do not know if this makes sense," but before every clear thought you have, as if preemptively apologizing for the audacity of having a perspective. This habit feels like kindness. It is actually a form of self-protection dressed in the language of consideration. Because when you soften everything to the point of inaudibility, what you are primarily protecting is yourself from the discomfort of delivering a clear message and watching someone receive it. The other person's feelings are a secondary concern. Your avoidance of the awkward moment is the primary driver, and it fails everyone involved. The person who needed honest feedback does not receive it clearly enough to act on it. The relationship does not deepen through real honesty. And you carry the weight of the unsaid thing as a quiet, low-grade tension that does not resolve. Research on feedback delivery from organizational psychology has consistently shown that vague, heavily softened feedback produces worse outcomes than direct, compassionate feedback for both the recipient and the relationship. People do not want to be handled. They want to be respected enough to receive the truth. Softening to the point of dishonesty is not respect. It is condescension wearing a polite mask. And it signals to the people around you that you do not trust them with reality. The most trusted people in any social or professional environment are not the ones who only ever say pleasant things. They are the ones who can say difficult things with care and without cruelty. And it starts with letting your actual message be heard, not buried under so many qualifications that the person has to guess what you actually meant. Here is what all 5 of these habits have in common. They were installed in you by a social system that valued your compliance and your smoothness over your honesty and your wholeness. They serve someone. They serve the people who needed you agreeable, the social environments that needed no friction, the relationships that needed you manageable. They did not serve you. And you have been paying the price in exhaustion, in invisibility, in resentment, in the strange loneliness of being surrounded by people who like you but do not know you. Uninstalling these habits does not make you rude. It makes you real, and real is the only thing worth being. Drop in the comments which one of these hit you hardest. Which habit recognized itself in you immediately? I want to know. And if someone in your life is exhausted from being too nice and does not know why, send this to them today. Because sometimes the most genuinely kind thing you can do for someone is tell them the truth about what is costing them.